What's up, guys? Justin from Throwing the Leather here, and I just wanted to come to you real quick, talk about some stuff that happened over the weekend. As you see, it's only me here. This isn't a full episode, it's just a little bonus, I guess you can call it. And I want to go over some stuff that happened over the weekend so we don't have to talk about any of that on the live show this Saturday, 6:30 on our YouTube. UFC 262 predictions, you know the drill, we've done it several times in the past. Nothing really different, so be here, be on the lookout for that. But the big news today, in the world of boxing, not MMA, is that Eddie Hearn announced Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua is official for August in Saudi Arabia. He didn't give an exact date, but said either August the 7th or August the 14th. So fingers crossed it actually does happen because, like I said in the last episode, it's been 21 years since there's last been an undisputed heavyweight champion, and I think we're all clamoring for that fight to happen and for there finally to be one heavyweight king where it hasn't happened in over 2 decades now. So fingers crossed, hopefully this fight actually happens. But again, you never really know. I'm very positive and hopeful that this will happen, but again, you never really know, especially with how boxing's been going lately. Anything could really happen, but fingers crossed, Eddie Hearn comes through, and same with Fury and Joshua. So hopefully that happens. And a lot of people were upset that it's in Saudi Arabia, not in London and Wembley Stadium, and I understand that. I mean, it's definitely the biggest fight in the history of the heavyweights in British history, and for it to not take place on British soil, I mean, both Fury and Joshua are British, and they're both trying to become the undisputed heavyweight champion. So I personally, even though I'm not British, I would have liked to see that fight take place in England. I think it would have been a cooler storyline. It would have been cooler. I mean, the full crowd there. I mean, it's still going to be great and a monumental occasion, even if it's not in England, but I think it could have been bigger if it were in England, but it's still going to be massive regardless of where it takes place. But um, yeah, that's about that for right now. I'm staying with boxing. I'm sure you guys saw over the weekend Canelo Alvarez defeated Billy Joe Saunders to win the WBO Super Middleweight Championship, and he has all but one of the belts there. So Caleb Plant is the IBF champion. So hopefully one day we see a unification bout. I mean, I don't see it going any other way than a Canelo victory, but in the sport, you never know. I mean, Billy Joe Saunders put up a much bigger fight than a lot of people expected, I guess you can say. But it was a pretty back and forth fight with some people saying they thought Billy Joe Saunders was winning it. I'm not so sure where I had it, probably more for Canelo, but definitely a competitive fight that I don't know if a lot of people saw it being that competitive, especially looking at Canelo's past fights against Callum Smith and Yildirim in February. So Billy Joe put up a good fight, and he did get injured bad. I think it was a fractured orbital, the entire right side of his face. Just he had to have reconstructive surgery, I believe. So not good for Billy Joe Saunders. Hopefully he fights again. I'm hearing that he might not, that his career may be in doubt. I hope that's not the case, but with this sport, you never really know. All it takes is one injury, one big shot, especially from a guy like Canelo, and just really bad uppercut to the right side of his face. So prayers up for Billy Joe Saunders. Hopefully we see him in the ring again in the future. Probably not the near future, but hopefully at some point we do see him in the ring again. So prayers up for him. That's pretty much it for boxing as of right now. With the big fights, nothing else really announced other than Fury Joshua, which is the biggest fight that could be made in boxing right now. So switching gears, on Friday night, Bellator 258 took place. Juan Archuleta was defeated by Sergio Pettis, who became the new Bellator bantamweight champion, in a very technical performance. I thought it was a solid fight. I thought it was another solid performance by Sergio Pettis. I think one or two judges had it 50-45 for Sergio. The others had it 49-46. I didn't agree with the 50-45 card. I thought more along the lines of 49-46. But again, the right man won, so I guess that's all that really matters. But I wasn't too sure that it was 50-45 for Sergio Pettis. But, I had it 49-46. Phenomenal performance, following in the footsteps of his brother Anthony, becoming a world champion in MMA. Of course, he didn't do it in the UFC, but he still has a major MMA world title now, which is awesome. So congrats to him. Congrats to his team. At least he did win his big fight, unlike Anthony, who did lose to Clay Collard in the PFL. But that's wasn't a title fight, but still, he can still rebound from that. I don't think his career is over yet, but Sergio is, I think, just hitting his prime now, and he looked very solid against Juan Archuleta. So maybe he'll have a nice long title reign, or maybe he won't. I mean, obviously, it's one of the two, but we will see what happens with him. I thought it was a good performance. I thought it was a good fight. I thought it was definitely a 49-46 victory for Sergio Pettis, but nonetheless, he won. So congratulations to him. Also on that card, Anthony Rumble Johnson made his return. One of my all-time favorite fighters was back. He knocked out Jose Augusto in the second round. And for anybody who watched that fight, I was sitting in my chair. I was going like this in the first round when Augusto hit him with, I think it was a left hook or something like that. And it really wobbled Rumble. I mean, he was on the ground covering up. I was like, oh my God, is he about to get knocked out? And then Augusto took his back, and I thought he was going to lock in the rear naked choke. And I was like, oh no, not Rumble's other kryptonite, or maybe his only kryptonite. But he did survive that and ended up coming back in the second round with a classic Rumble knockout to advance to the semifinals in the Bellator Light Heavyweight Grand Prix. He will fight Vadim Nemkov next for the belt in July, I believe. That fight's going to take place. I'm very excited for that fight. Vadim Nemkov is a very entertaining fighter, and he's a very dangerous fighter, too. He is a beast, but so is Rumble. And I think we could be looking at a very, very competitive fight, and possibly new. Again, only time will tell on that, but I'm looking very much forward to that fight. And the other fight in the Light Heavyweight Grand Prix, Ryan Bader and Corey Anderson. That's going to be a great fight as well. I think Corey Anderson has all the tools necessary to beat a former champion in Ryan Bader and current champion at heavyweight. But I'm really interested in that Ryan Bader Corey Anderson fight. I think that's going to be an awesome fight, and I think a lot of people aren't going to take this Grand Prix that serious because it's Bellator. But I mean, Bellator's been putting on some great fights recently. I mean, I don't think that Bellator should be looked at as the minor leagues. I know it is, but they've got some great talent over there. Vadim Nemkov is a savage, and Rumble back over there now, not back over there. Corey Anderson, I know was in the UFC, but still, Ryan Bader, another former UFC fighter, but they got some serious talent in Bellator right now. Even if they are former UFC fighters, whatever the case may be, I'm looking very much forward to the rest of this light heavyweight Grand Prix, and fingers crossed, Yoel Romero does end up fighting at some point. I'm hoping he will. I'm pretty optimistic that he will, but I still would like to see Rumble Romero at some point. That could have a belt attached to it if Rumble is able to beat Vadim Nemkov in July, so that could be just a massive, massive fight at some point. And I speak for myself and probably most MMA fans when I say that we want to see Rumble and Romero fight. I was stoked when that fight got announced. I was very upset when it got canceled, but that's the fight game. It is what it is. It happens. It's natural. Also happening, I believe yesterday it was, Fabricio Verdoom's loss to Cesar Fedea at the PFL has been overturned to a no contest after Cesar Fedea tapped, and then Verdoom lit up on the choke, went in for the TKO and finished Verdoom. You guys probably know about that by now. Referee Keith Peterson, the initial decision was a TKO win for Fedea, but upon further review, as we all saw, Fedea did tap, he 1-2, that in most cases would be a tap, and the New Jersey Athletic Commission saw it as that. So props to them for doing the right thing. It's not all the time you see something like that. So, props to them for making the correct decision and giving Verdoom his justice. So I'm happy for that, but it also raises the question, what's going to happen with the Grand Prix, tournament, whatever. And now Verdoom he moved up in the tournament, so it's a little weird, but we'll see what happens, the fallout from this. But at least Verdoom got some justice. Justice would be him getting the victory, which he definitely did. But again, it is what it is for now. Dana White was talking to Brett Okamoto, I believe today, switching gears now to the UFC, and said that Derrick Lewis is next for Francis Ngannou, something that I think we all kind of had a hunch was going to be the case because John Jones wanted a lot of money to fight Francis Ngannou that the UFC was not going to give him. I think he wanted upwards of almost $30 million, which I understand the UFC not giving him that. Not even Conor makes that kind of money, and Conor brings in way more revenue than John Jones. So I do think John Jones deserves a bigger payday than he's been getting recently, but $30 million, that's not even McGregor money. So maybe in boxing, but not in MMA. So I understand where Dana is coming from in not giving that fight to John Jones, but I am stoked for this Francis Ngannou Derrick Lewis rematch. I mean, could it play out like their first fight? Yes. Could it play out completely different? Absolutely. I mean, Ngannou looks way better recently. Obviously, you saw in the Stipe rematch, he looked phenomenal. Derrick Lewis has been looking great lately. His power is insane, and I think a lot of people look at Ngannou as the far and away better puncher and more powerful puncher in the heavyweight division when Derrick Lewis can put it to bed with one shot too. I mean, you saw what he did against Curtis Blades. That was filthy. And Volkov, I could name 10 Derrick Lewis fights, but the point being, Derrick Lewis has the same kind of power Francis Ngannou does, and all it's going to take is for one shot for one of those guys to go to sleep. So I'm happy Derrick Lewis is getting this shot. I think he deserves it. You can't really deny John Jones a shot either, but Derrick Lewis, I believe, deserves it. It's not like it's undeserving. So good for Derrick Lewis. Dana White, he didn't give any, I don't believe, any date or time frame for that fight. I'm guessing probably early fall that fight will take place, but I'm super excited for that one. Maybe even August. Who knows? But speaking of the summer, he did say that John Jones and Stipe Miocic is a possibility. I would love that fight. I think that makes a lot of sense because if Stipe wins, then he furthers his claim as a heavyweight GOAT and definitely secures a rematch against Ngannou or a fight with Derrick Lewis, whoever wins that fight. And, I mean, he would have the claim to be the only guy who defeated John Jones. I know the Matt Hamill loss, but really beat John Jones. So he would have that claim, the right to that claim, be the heavyweight GOAT, say he beat John Jones, and then he would either get a trilogy with Ngannou or a fight with Derrick Lewis. Whatever the case may be, I think that this fight is awesome because, say John Jones wins, then he has the claim that he beats Stipe, and then he goes into a Francis Ngannou fight or a Derrick Lewis fight with that victory. So, massive, massive fight for either fighter. I think definitely higher. I don't want to say higher stakes for either guy. I think it's very high stakes because it's okay. Is Stipe really the GOAT, or did Francis Ngannou prove that he's not? And is John Jones going to be the same fighter at heavyweight that he was at light heavyweight? I would love to see that fight. I think this is best case scenario. Ngannou Lewis 2, Miocic Jones, winners fight each other. I can't really see many bad things that come from this. Obviously, we wouldn't get Ngannou Jones if Stipe is to win. But if Stipe looks good against John Jones, maybe Ngannou Miocic 3 would be much more interesting than Ngannou Jones. Whatever the case may be, I'm excited for this. I hope this actually does take place because it brings much more excitement into the heavyweight division that doesn't have as much right now as other divisions. So I would personally love to see it. I know a lot of other people would too. So let's hope that that happens. Also, I saw on, I believe Instagram it was, a very random beef, Kevin Lee and Mike Perry. I didn't expect this one to happen. Kevin Lee says he wants to go back up to welterweight and he wants to fight Mike Perry probably in July, maybe at UFC 264. I didn't see this coming. I did not expect this to happen. I didn't really know what I saw for Kevin Lee, whether he'd stay at 55, missing weight in his last fight against Charles Oliveira, or going back to welterweight. But being he is ranked at lightweight, I would have expected him to get a bigger fight. But I like this fight. I definitely like this fight. I mean, it's a big opportunity for Mike Perry. If he can get a win over Kevin Lee, he could definitely stay in the UFC longer and further his longevity and just get a nice win on his resume. I don't think it'd put him in any sort of ranking, but I would love to see it. I hope that it does happen, and I don't know who I'd have in that one, but again, obviously I'm not going to predict that one. It's not even official yet. I don't even know if Dana White's talking about it or if it's just Kevin Lee and Mike Perry going at it on social media. But I would like to see that fight personally. Let me know if you guys would like to see that in the comments, if that's a fight that you would be interested in seeing or not, and why. But yeah, that's a possibility too. So switching gears now to Saturday night, UFC Fight Night, Hajidas versus Watterson was a card that seemed to be cursed, but ended up being very good. I mean, Gregor Gillespie defeated Diego Fedea in a first round that looked like might be Diego's. Gregor just broke him in the second round. That is really the only way to describe what happened. And he TKO'd him in the second round. Phenomenal performance by Gregor Gillespie to come back after well over a year, one of the most brutal knockouts that we've seen in recent memory, and to get a big win over Diego Fedea is massive for him. So big props to the self-proclaimed best fisherman in the UFC and the UFC lightweight contender, or maybe hopeful lightweight contender, Gregor Gillespie. Really awesome performance. It was a technical fight. It was a wrestling grappling matchup for the better part of the first round, but Gregor looked good, man. He really did. His gas tank is phenomenal, and to TKO somebody like that, it takes some serious skill, and to just break somebody like that, I mean, just mentally break them like he did to Diego is spectacular. And Diego missed weight, so there's that. You know, you miss weight, you lose a fight. It can't really. That's good. You know, co-main event was a tough one. Donald Cerrone and Alex Morono. Morono took the fight on short notice, obviously, since whatever's going on with Diego Sanchez. He got released. You guys know the story by now. But Moreno TKO'd Cowboy in the first round, so that was a toughie, but not something that I think we weren't prepared for, given Cowboy's last couple of fights. Man, I hate to say that I don't know if he's there anymore, but he looked like Cowboy. I mean, he looked good in the striking. I mean, he didn't look terrible, but his chin, I just don't think his chin is where it used to be, and I think this fight proved it. And he's ranked at lightweight at number 15. So Dana said he'll get one more shot, and it will be at 155. Hopefully they give him, I hate to say easy, but an easier matchup so he can, I don't even want to say it like that, but don't give him like a ranked guy. Don't give him a contender. I wouldn't mind seeing him and Clay Guida, two legends of the sport, and maybe a rematch with him and Jim Miller. I mean, the two guys who are in there for the UFC's most wins and most fights in the UFC. Why not match him up with Jim Miller again or Clay Guida? Those are two very interesting matchups in my opinion. I wouldn't mind seeing those. I know he did beat Jim Miller before, but they're both at a point in their careers where that matchup would make sense. I mean, they're both up there for the most fights in UFC history and for the most wins in UFC history. So I think that fight makes a lot more sense than people might make it out to seem. But I wouldn't mind seeing that at all. That would be a possibility for me personally. Clay Guida would be another one. Hell, maybe even Michael Johnson. But I think Cowboy's days of fighting ranked guys are probably over, especially if he only has one more fight left, I would imagine. But, you know, it sucks to see a guy go out like that, but I won't remember Cowboy when he retires for the losses. I'll remember him for the phenomenal knockouts and being the UFC's all-time win leader, and that's the Cowboy I'll remember, not the Cowboy that, you know, got knocked out by McGregor and beat up by Tony Ferguson and Justin Gaethje, and I'm not going to keep going on and on, but that's not the Cowboy I'm going to personally remember. I'm going to remember the Cowboy that kicked ass and, you know, had some of the best head kicks in the game. So hopefully he'll go out on his shield and get a win in his last UFC fight. Main event, Marina Hajidas and Michelle Watterson was a fight that a lot of people were like, why is this the main event? I thought it was a great fight. Back and forth, Hajidas hit Watterson with some bombs, and I'm surprised Watterson, you know, didn't get finished from. Phenomenal fight, great performance by both ladies. I was impressed. I enjoyed the fight. Hajidas is a serious contender at 115 now. I think you could be looking at maybe a fight with Joanna Jędrzejczyk next, or even Carla Esparza. I don't know. There are a lot of different options that you could go. I wouldn't mind seeing her and Joanna next. I think that fight makes sense, but only time will tell. Phenomenal performance. Really good card, honestly. I was impressed with it. And so just to preview a little bit, I think that's all stuff that happened over the weekend. Big news and, into yesterday and today. This weekend, obviously, UFC 262, Oliveira versus Chandler for the UFC Lightweight Championship. Oh, yeah, Jack Hermansson and Edmund Shabazian is moved a week to May 22nd. I don't think they gave a reason why, just that it did get moved. So Charles Oliveira, Michael Chandler in the main event for the lightweight belt. Tony Ferguson and Beneil Dariush in the co-main. 3-round lightweight bout. I would like to see that at 5 rounds, but again, they weren't training for 5, so I understand them not getting the 5-round co-main. Flyweight bout, Machnell and Rogerio Bortorin. I'm sorry if I pronounced that name wrong, but they stepped in Hermansson and Shabazian's place. A flyweight bout that I'm looking forward to. That's going to be a good fight. And then women's flyweight bout, Caitlin Chukagian and Viviane Orejo. Again, I apologize if I pronounced that name wrong. I more than likely did. I apologize. And then my most anticipated fight on that card, featherweight bout between Shane Burgos and Edson Barboza. I think that fight's going to be an all-out war. I am very much looking forward to that fight. I think that has potential to be fight of the night, as does Ferguson and Dariush and Oliveira and Chandler. Even though there have been a lot of cancellations on this card, including the co-main, Leon Edwards and Nate Diaz, I think this card is still very good. And a lot of people at face value will look at it and say, that's not worth, pay-per-view. But it's definitely going to be a better card than people are making it out to be. I'm excited for it. I can't wait. 6:30, Saturday, May 15th, live on our YouTube right here. We will be doing our UFC 262 predictions and pre-show. So come on by. Spend some time with us, probably about an hour, 6:30 to 7:30, so we get off before the prelims start, so you guys can go watch those. And so we can go watch those too. And we'll give our predictions, give our thoughts on the fights, and preview them, and then get ready for UFC 262 and to crown a new lightweight champion. So we hope you guys will be there Saturday night, live on our YouTube, 6:30 p.m. Come on by. Hope you enjoyed the episode on Saturday. Hope you enjoyed this episode. I want to thank you guys. We want to thank you guys. I know it's just me now, but we want to thank you guys for the continued support. We are very appreciative of all of you guys. Spread the word about the channel. Most of our videos and episodes, like I said, will be on here as opposed to Spotify and Apple podcasts like they used to be. So mainly look on our YouTube for future episodes and videos and stuff like that. So I think that's about it for today. We are Throwing the Leather. I'm Justin, and I want to thank you guys for stopping by and hope to see you on our live show Saturday night. Take care. Have a good week, everyone.